So welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and our next game will be a round 4 matchup between Protoss versus Protoss. My name is Daks, and joining me this time is gonna be a new face in the scene. One of Cypher's little babies right there has been participating in a bunch of our tournaments so far, doing his own prod thing as well. The same thing as I do, and his name is Malupeyt.
What is up and hello guys, it's your boy Malupeyt from the Ayos Buhay crew, and it's really a big pleasure to be in Dak's show, to be honest. Been a huge fan, and if hindi nyo alam, he's one of my inspiration to do these kinds of things. And also, he's one of my inspirations to go back to the StarCraft scene. So yeah, welcome, and thank you, Dax.
Of course, no problem, my friend. And it really is just always so good to see these new faces show on up. It is a small and passionate scene, and hey, working together gonna be so good in
Yeah,
so
yeah,
many ways. And all I gotta say though is you gotta thank Mr. DLS Mizzle. You know who that guy is, guys. He's
yeah,
a big time, like legit. He's the granddaddy of all these tournaments right now. And of course, without him, these tournaments wouldn't be ongoing. But also, just before we move into our game, we'll quickly just plug all our sponsors who have made this tournament possible. ROG Internet Cafe, Block 001 Games, 101 Games. We also have Pouchin and Derbayagster Style Cookie, as well as Rageki from the community side. And this has been brought to you by DLS Missile, those image solutions. Amazing work, like Stream Package itself, as well as me. You're here, you're now, you're in twitch.tv/DaksPH. And of course, we still have something that is going on right now, which is the Big or GK30 gaming keyboard giveaway. So, we already got our first question exposed earlier on. We'll be moving into our second question maybe this time or maybe into the next one. You just have to keep tuning in. You just have to be paying attention. And this giveaway is only for today, guys. We'll have something a little different for tomorrow's Masters bracket. But it seems like we have gotten our map picks in orders. And Malupeyt, it is going to be interesting as we do have these 3 picks going on the way. Pillars of Gold, Deathaura LE, as well as Everdream. Any thoughts coming into this map set?
Well, actually, Pillars of Gold is quite a hard map for Protoss since it you need to wall off really well. But since it's a PvP, we won't see any aggressive pushes from the early game. And also, it's one of the new maps for the second season. So let's see how this PvP matchup would go.
Really is. It's gonna be really interesting to see how this PvP matchup is gonna go. The thing about this though, will we get that wall off? It's gonna be the standard 2 gate 1 core, I believe, from a Protoss versus Protoss in every single map. If you do skip that, you can get punished really easily. And in PvP, sometimes he who expands first is the one who loses because they're not paying attention to proxies, to big armies,
Yeah.
and at least though it's more defensible right now, right? Because the battery overcharge is such a good addition. But I think we are ready to go, Malupeyt. And maybe do you have anything you want to say about like these two players? Do you have any background
Uh,
for DavidBane as well as Pobbes?
Actually, on my first match on the tournament, I've matched against DavidBane, and uh, he defeated me. So that's why I'm in the casters panel already. He sits around at the 4,300 MMR range, almost near to masters. And for Pobbes, he is a new play. I mean, I think he just came back to from the scene, sitting around at the 3,800 MMR mark. So in terms of MMR, not that close since in higher leagues, it's a high difference or it's a high margin, even though it's in the 100 range. But we'll see on how they would play against each other.
It really is. I believe for Pobbes, he has been a long time player, and we are ready to go whenever Mr. Mizzle. But yeah, Pobbes is one of those players that had come back because of the SCPH series, and really appreciate all that support from the veteran regions. In the meantime, David Bain, this guy is also a magician in his own right. He beat Malupeyt, which is already the biggest accomplishment for today. The second one is he won at the SCPH quarantine number 2. So he is looking to try and retake that crown back, trying to just basically look to show his worth coming into this set. And something to also note is he participated last time in the Masters bracket for QT number 3. So it really is
Mhm.
gonna be a tough task here for Pobbs. And it also is gonna be a tough task for David Bain. So I'd say really this is a matchup to keep an eye out on. Even though PvP can get cheesy, it's not Protoss versus Protoss, guys. It's sometimes proxy versus proxy. But we are going to be loading on into our map, Pillars of Gold. It's going to be really good here for the Golden Armada. I feel like they're going to be feeling very at home in the blue and purple. But hey, as Mr. Malupeyt has already said, you want to go for that wall in if you need to. You're going to be a very defensible position though on the first and the second. Pick up which one extension you want to go on. The third one on the low ground, or you can stay on the high ground there but be more on the aggressive side. hopefully we can get into this game as quick as can be. I'm very, very excited for this one, Malupeyt. And you know, in PvP, what do you really expect besides, of course, that proxy play? What kind of composition might we see coming into this game?
Well, in terms of PvP, you have a lot of timings, or maybe that's why scouting is one of the most important essentials of this matchup. Maybe if you scout an early 4 gas, you might see a DT or an Archon drop coming, or maybe if he goes for the early warp gate, you might see the multi-prong harass using the warp prism. So it is really a micro oriented matchup. So it's really interesting for us to see on what these players would bring onto the table today.
Yep, I completely agree. Playing Protoss itself is micro-intensive. You think you can just leave things and go A move. Sometimes you want to be optimal with it, and that's what the abilities are all about. In Protoss, if you do have your abilities unlocked, then that will allow you to just get the maximum value out of that one. But it seems like it is finally high time to get into the match. This will be round 4 already. We've gone through round 1, 2, and 3 coming into this one. And let's move into the game. Let's move into the match. And let's move into this PvP. So take it away, Malupeyt. Introduce our players.
On the bottom left of Pillars of Gold LE, we got our purple Protoss, Pobbes. And also, on the upper right corner of Pillars of Gold LE, we got our blue Protoss, DavidBane.
Malupeyt, I have a question for you. So,
Yes.
if you have a magician, and he's also a Batman villain, is his name gonna be DavidBane?
Oh my goodness.
Diba? Didn't even think about that one, did you? Huh? He is a magician with that Protoss though, and maybe we have to get our Bane voices out saying right here, as of course we are gonna have that pylon set up with the gateway. Pretty much standard stuff on Protoss, and anyone who doesn't do 2-gate 1-core is really asking for trouble in a matchup like this.
And earlier during the lobby, both the players kind of agreeing or kind of having a truce on not cheesing each other. So maybe it might be a mind games
Ooh,
on the side for them.
I don't think
But
that's
yeah,
gonna
we'll see
happen.
about that.
I really don't. I really disagree. That's not gonna happen. There's no way they're not gonna proxy each other, but it might happen. You know, the funny thing about the quarantine Golden Diamond bracket, it really is Protoss infested on the top side. Especially for
Yeah.
some of our Protoss players, they're the ones who are really at the top echelons of this skill bracket. So they can really end up dominating the last few matches with a matchup like this. But hey, you know, PvP, kind of the funkiest one. I'm glad battery overcharge exists though to make it a little less funky to begin with. But there we go with 2 gates, 1 core being set up by both Pobbes and DavidBane in literally the same aspects of the map.
Well, I think my personal opinion would be is Protoss is the easiest to play, especially if you're
Ah, I completely
uh,
agree.
in the lowest parts of the echelons of the ladder, especially on the diamond. But a lot of people are saying that you just need to max out an A move, you know. But it's not that simple, I think.
It isn't. It
So
isn't.
yeah.
Hey, I gotta say though, if you start things off, Protoss is really your my first training wheels basically. It basically is, yeah, units come out pretty instantaneously. They come out standardly if you don't have the upgrades yet. Buildings build themselves, so it's pretty simple. And
Hmm.
DavidBane has already broken the gentleman's agreement. He has a proxy pylon into play here. In the meantime, there we go with a little bit of damage. Pobbes just going for that pylon that DavidBane sets up. And you see this from every PvP. It's just a standard blockade. DavidBane though not canceling that one. That pylon is going to go down very quickly. A little bit of waste of resources because he lets that one up. But in any case, it's still high time for DavidBane to mass up stalkers versus a sentry there as well as some stalkers from Pobbes' side.
I would like to bring up the point that you have said earlier that whoever expands first might is more prone to a counterattack. So in terms of timing, it's a little bit late for the natural. So
Yeah, it really
uh,
is. I completely agree.
we also see DavidBane moving across the map here in the middle.
Trying to go for a little bit of an engagement, perhaps. He has that proxy panel already set up. Is his Warp Gate research going to be done anytime soon? He might want to chrono boost that one if he wants reinforcements. But I think it's just more of harassment. Now, something to note is since both of these Protosses expanded at basically the same time past 3-minute mark, they should be pretty safe because that army count is going to be more or less even. Going for the post right here, right now. DavidBane though backing on that high ground advantage there from Pobbes allows him to get the initial shots. And Pillars of Gold, as you said before, all about that high ground, defensible positions on the first and the second bases.
A little bit of skirmish right there, but I think the main thing that DavidBane did there was actually scout for the natural, and with that you can react accordingly. You know that nothing cheesy is happening, and yeah, you know that you're both going for the standard builds. So
I completely agree. It really is just all about making sure that your opponent doesn't have a bigger army than you when you want to go for the expansion. And DavidBane was kind of afraid of it. He wanted to play the aggressor to make his opponent think that, oh, this guy is not going for the expansion and behind. A little bit of mind games there from DavidBane as here comes the Magician himself, relocating those adepts into the mineral line. Still all about that main base right now. 3 probes have gone down. Will it be enough though? Seems like the value isn't going to be as high as you'd expect. 3 probes, 2 adepts, not too bad, but Pobbes doesn't really care because he just kept mining while all of that was happening.
good harassment coming in from DavidBane, but it's not that efficient. But still, if you in this kinds of tournaments, you kind of want to pressure your opponent since you know how they react towards things. So if you're going down the line, maybe a best of 3 or going into the game 3, you want to know how they react to certain things that you bring into them. So yeah.
I completely agree. It really is just all about figuring out how to make your opponent do something that you want to do. And then best of 3, you can really just psych your opponent out with different kind of strategies, different kinds of pushes. But speaking of the push right now, Pobbes going to be going to that high ground. Stalker's going to be up in front. He wants to protect that Immortal as much as possible. And that Immortal value here, Malupeyt, making a big difference. And when you get that Immortal against Stalkers, these things is what? 3-shot these things as quick as can be.
Yeah.
It's so much damage. And one pick off on the Immortal makes a huge difference. It's a big swing on these very, very crucial units. Found spotted. DavidBane, goodbye to the proxy. And maybe Pobbes is like, hey, what was this all about? Why is there a proxy there? But he does have a pretty good RB count right now. He has these Immortals, he's setting up some shield batteries to try and defend. Already going for Twat Cancel and that charge out on both sides. Templar Archives though, courtesy of DavidBane. And does Pobbes actually murder that one? Seems like he is gonna do so. Archon's now gonna be a good component. Maybe Psystorm later on gonna be helpful to really get some ticks into the forefront.
DavidBane getting supply block, losing the proxy pylon there, ladies and gentlemen. But a bit of mirror matchup, but the army supply slight in favor of Pobbes. He's tanking his army supply at the moment, and I think DavidBane going for the 3rd expansion there. We might see a big push from Pobbes any time now.
Yeah, but it seems like Pobbes is doing the same thing. He's also going for the 3rd base. Doesn't know DavidBane is doing that. Seems like it is not the case. He has no observer, those scouting on around. But the thing DavidBane has over Pobbes is that quality. He is looking for +2 already, while Pobbes is going for +1. But if you still don't have enough units, it'll make a key difference. And speaking of the difference maker right now, it's Pobbes with the Immortals inside that Warp Prism. How effective is an Immortal drop in a scenario like this here, Malupeyt?
Well, the usual timings for the War Prism Immortal drops is usually around the 5-minute mark, since that is the time where your opponent might be droning or probing that time. But it's an 8-minute mark right here, right now. But I think it might be effective since there is no shield battery on the mineral line.
Yeah,
We'll see. And while a multi-pronged attack would be happening, the drop here and the army of Pobbes would be moving towards that third to that 3rd nexus.
Oh, Pylon though might get caught here. Goodbye to the power on the Templar Archives as well as that Twilight Council. Drop though, courtesy of the Archons. Micro right here, right now from DavidBane. Both sides just showing off their micro there. And on the other side, it's going to be the front lines being protected by DavidBane. What is Pobbes doing with the rest of the crew? Seems like nothing, because it is going to be high time for these Archons to try and get the zap on. War Person has to get away because these things can shoot in the air. And that was just pretty much a show of force from both Pobbes and DavidBane that if I can do it, you can do it too, and vice versa.
Both of them showing their mechanics there, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my goodness. We might be set for a wonderful matchup, a wonderful quarter-final matchup here
yeah,
on our hands.
I actually forgot. You know, I look at the rounds as like, That's round something. We're here somewhere on the bracket. I close my eyes, I throw a dart, and that is the match that we are doing. That's not how I do it, guys, because I don't have a piece of paper. I wish I could do that on like my TV, but I think it'll break if I throw a dart on it. How do you make clutch decisions in your life, Malupeyt? What is like the best way for you to randomize your life?
Uh, you get the ND dice.
Uh-huh. Wow. That kind of guy. How many sides? How many sides?
16.
Oh, that's a big one. D16. Okay. And then as before the clash happens, quickly.
If it's even, it's a yes. If it's odd, it's a no.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. You have an 8 for 8 chance. It's still 50, but you know, at least more chances per se. The probability is the same, but whatever. And whatever floats your boat, but you know what's gonna be floating this boat right now is gonna be that battery overcharge from Pobbes. I like that though from DavidBane. He basically says, go, pop it, I dare you. Now, he will just wait this out, and Pobbes will not have it anymore for this upcoming clash, so he has to go for the mic ring of his macros, sets up those gateways as well as floating cannons to get in the way, but it is high time again to go for the engagement. Apparently, DavidBane no reprieve whatsoever, literally waiting out that battery overcharge as quick as can be, and shutting down those buildings before they even get warped in. Oh, another engagement, no seesaw approach here, Mr. Malupeyt. There is no stopping with the fight. Eventually, though, it's gonna be the cascade on yet again. The Archons absolutely glowing, hitting each other as much as possible. Here comes more and more Zealots, though, courtesy of Pobbes, but DavidBane doing the same in behind. Warpers right now doing all they can, and this is looking high time for this third base to go down. Probes are falling as well as a beautiful drop comes in from Pobbes, and DavidBane and Pobbes might be in a basis scenario by this point in time as the army count from Pobbes whittled down to a puny number.
Magnificent concave coming in from both sides, but while that is happening, a counterattack from the side of Pobbes. The multiple Warp Prism drop also wreaking havoc on the economy from the sides of DavidBane, but in terms of army supply, he is still leading a little bit here, but a good engagement from the side of DavidBane. But what a magnificent multi-pronged grab for the side of Pobbes.
Did you see that? He literally built so many units to just harass the probe line on not just one, not just two, but three. But three of them, and DavidBane, lucky for him, he got the Dark Shrine out in time, and he got the DT to defend, but in the end, even though DavidBane won out that clash, that was really amazing to see, really going for the seesaw approach against the battery overcharge, he is the one in behind right now on the worker count, and Pobbes can easily just keep up his saturation on, go for as many units as he wants, and go for the counterattack, but there's still a caveat. Even though Pobbes has the lead here in the worker count, his resources are dwindling on both the main and the natural base.
I think the right thing for DavidBane there is actually not to attack with his DTs. The good thing for him to do that time was to actually sneak it into the deeper mineral lines. So a little bit of misplay for them, but it might be intended. So
intended to run your units into certain demise, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
just go die, no worries, no problem. But all I gotta say though, I think he just got caught out. The observer was there with the book. He was looking at for scout, maybe just bother a few of the zealots immediately. But since he literally, warped in Dark Templar in front of Immortals, Pobbes has to be always having detection to make sure those assassins can't really get anywhere. So he has these two observers already in position. Can DavidBane get enough of an army to defend this 82 army right now versus 60? The thing to note though, it's +1 there for DavidBane on the armor compared to nothing, but it's still +2 on both sides. And here comes Pobbes again with the potential drop, looking for that Artosis pylon, wants to shut down the probe facility as quick as can be. Cycle's gonna be available. Here comes the drop from the Zealots right now. DavidBane having to make a decision, but apparently he is caught in indecision instead. And apparently you have to roll that D16. You have to say yes or no, but in this case it's yes or yes for Pobbes. He's getting the push yet again onto the third base. In the meantime though, DavidBane still holding steadfast, trying to do as much damage as he can. Since Pobbes is scattered around with all these units, he really can't go for a more proper fight. What are we gonna see here?
Archon Warp Prism Micro from the side of Pobbes. What a good concave there. As you can see in the statistics below, DavidBane catching in terms of workers, but in terms of army, Pobbes just keep on expanding his army. Beautiful engagement, and what a game from Pobbes.
GG, well played there. Pobbes with the victory, and even though he was under duress, he was able to hold the line enough to make sure he wasn't gonna get KO'd. And he just did astronomical amount of damage. That's what you expect from a drop. You usually expect, okay, one base, maybe two. But all three of them getting hampered, getting crippled, was just magnificently done there by Pobbes. And as you said, DavidBane trying to catch up on the probe count, couldn't really focus on getting the army instead. And that is just basically the show. I still got worried for a little bit there for Pobbes because he couldn't really find his footing at the very start of that last engagement. But the Zealots came in, as you said, the Archon Warp was there. Enough was enough, get enough of those damage done, and that is victory there for Pobbes. He will take that 1-0 lead.
The War Prism multi-pronged attack is the name of the game for Pogues. He sacrificed his main engagement while defending his third Nexus, but it really paid off for him as he wreaked havoc onto the backline, onto the economy of DavidBane. So we are headed on to game number 2, and I think Deathaura is next.
Yep, let me just show that on screen. Pobbes taking that first victory. Deathaura gonna be next on the list, and we are waiting on right now for our lobby to set up. But that was a pretty good PvP. Not really too much proxy play besides that pylon, so you know, a little bit of a asterisk in all honesty on Gentleman's Agreement, but I'd say it was more standard than I really expected in the first place. But Deathaura LE, I really will be surprised if neither side proxies here because that acceleration zone allows your probes to go zoom all the way to the other side as quick as possible, and you can always see a proxy Stargate on the eastern or western corners if unscouted.
Yeah, I think one of the most hardest thing for Deathaura is actually getting a good scout from the opponent, since there are a lot of the left side and the right side of the map is actually really big, and if not scouted properly, you can hide in buildings there. As I've encountered in the ladder, most of the terrains that do the 2 Rex proxy is usually on the Deathaura. So we'll see if we are going to see a cheesy matchup in this PvP.
It's gonna be interesting. I'm looking around though. We already have a few other matches going on right now. It's Dion versus Jack the Reaper, which is always a good one to see. We're doing DavidBane versus Pobbes right now. Xenos and Zero Smasher, and we're still waiting on for our last round 3 match to end between Guyver and Mac to see who will face off against Lev. So for any Zerg fans, we still have a Zerg available in round 4 in our round of 1, 2, 3, 4, round of 8. But we still have yet to see a Zerg player move on to the semifinals as well as the finals. But I think it is time right now to get into the action in just a bit. Oh, Pobbes race check as well as make sure that he's okay there. But Malupeyt, I got a question for you. What made you
Yeah,
start,
sure.
going into casting for SCPH or for StarCraft in general?
I actually started casting for my organization from the for the game development for Guild and Benilde. So we usually organize tournaments like Dota, CS:GO,
Hmm?
or yeah, things like that. And since I'm the video show host for our guild show, they said that, hey Vic, you might want to try casting. So I tried casting. It was nice. It was a good experience. Not only you're educating your viewers, you also give flavor to the audience to listen in. And since I've transitioned to StarCraft, trying to be a semi-pro player here in the Philippines, it it it, it was really a major pivotal point for me to start casting. Na sabi ko, if ever pumalpak yung pagiging player ko, my passion for the game would be translated into casting. So
Yeah,
yeah, here
that's
I
always
am.
good. That's always good. And in all honesty, for me, I used to start things. I very started like when I really started my casting career. I kind of was just a lone wolf, but more recently, since I've been more confident about my own casting, and just been, I've actually realized that hey, I can do things now, and so I'm just
Mhm.
been more welcoming with more people and. Hey, it's just my attitude is more like I'm low
Yeah, yeah.
key. Please leave me alone. But it's always a show. It's always fun to have people. And hey, it is now time to get into our next match. Pobbes up by 1 in this best of 3. If he wins out this second map, then he will be moving on to our semifinals. And let's move into the game. Another Protoss versus Protoss coming your way. Take it away, Malupeyt. It's time to introduce our players.
So on the top left corner of Death Aura LE, we've got Pobbes having that 1-0 advantage. And fighting for his tournament lives, the QT 2 champion, the Blue Protoss, DavidBane.
There's one thing I want to say. Every single time that you go for an intro, I'm always on the other guy. I don't know. I don't know. That's
Oh
where I
my
spawn.
god.
Okay, it's not my fault. It's not your fault. It's just the game. I think it just wants us to always be, we're two obs. We look at the other one. We look at the other one.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah.
pay attention. So it's like, oops. Oh well, whatever. It's okay. I will adjust. I got you. I got you. But speaking of I got you, DavidBane has got us with that twin gateways. In the meantime, do we have a forge? Do we have a forge? No, sir. No forge whatsoever. Twin assimilators, though, to go for the earlier gas, expecting stalkers, maybe a sentry here from both sides. And then welcome to Protoss versus Protoss again. 2 gate, 1 core. Pretty much is the bread, the butter, and literally the toast on that sandwich.
Another mirror matchup coming up from both of our players.
Oh, DavidBane. Pylon again, proxying it around in the middle of the map. But this is expected on that aura. It really is a map where you can kind of be sneaky, especially onto the sides of the map itself. It isn't really the full tile set if you pay attention to it. It has so many big spaces that make it even smaller than what it really is in terms of resolution. So not only is it a smaller map, but also it has those acceleration zones. So rush tactics are a lot quicker, so you have to really be on point with your defenses on a map like this.
Yeah, as a Zerg player, I actually enjoy doing Link Bane floods in this map against Protoss. Once you've scouted it incorrectly kasi you don't have enough time to react with the flood. And usually when you utilize this, it gives you 50% speed at a boost, I think. So even if you don't have speed links yet, they move right faster across the map.
They can pretend. They can pretend to have wings.
Yeah.
It's like when you're in PT, you come from an accident, something. Hopefully you guys haven't had this experience, but you come from an accident, you're trying to get your legs to work back, but suddenly you get a wheelchair and you're like, oh, I can go really fast again. And speaking of fast, though, Stalkers going for the chase onto whatever it was there. Now, something I like about the acceleration zones against like someone like Terran is you kind of bait them out there, and once their step back is done, you just accelerate away to the other side if you need to.
But back to the game first, DavidBane actually making it into the mineral line. And the Stalkers for Pobbes actually deciding to counterattack, but quick reaction by DavidBane here. Already 2 adepts in his base to defend. But DavidBane
so
not attacking the probes.
Oh,
And we'll get this around.
See if there's gonna be enough damage here, Mr. Malupeyt. And all I gotta say though is Pobbes a little too late on that pylon, and that's just a key difference right there. Good catch, especially because that's the side I can't see on my screen. But 7 probes have gone down on Pobbes' side, and for DavidBane, he's sending these stalkers to really put a hamper on. Eventually though, he is just basically gonna be fending off Pobbes' attack itself as he gets his stalkers out into the forefront. So Pobbes hurting a little more there. He even had to secure that pylon into place to make sure those adepts aren't going anywhere. And this basically hurts the Protoss a lot more than it should have on the purple side.
Yeah, a lot of unit lost. I think 10 units lost for the side of Pobbes, and it's caused. If you would see earlier, the Stalkers met the adepts here in the middle, but a good shade play from the adept of DavidBane, getting the
Oracle.
crossover.
There's an Oracle there from DavidBane also getting some damage. Proxy Stargate, seems like the Gentleman's agreement has fallen apart. And here we go again, DavidBane trying to bait things out. Stalker's already in position. This time shield battery into play there onto the natural. And for Pobbes, he does have enough units right now to finally fend off any kind of adept play in the first place. But I just want to go back to that acceleration zone. That was really good use there from DavidBane. Just baiting things out on Pobbes' side. Pobbes trying to go for the chase as much as possible. Adepts now brawling against the Stalkers. But this isn't going to be a matchup that they will win anytime soon. But in any case, it's still DavidBane in the lead. He has this proxy Stargate to do all he can and harass his opponent to impunity.
And also, I think the follow-up for DavidBane here is going to be an immortal drop. It depends if he makes a Warp Prism, or he might go for a full frontal push with the army advantage that he has. So we'll see about that. Usually, the build order is, I think, 2 immortals and 1 Warp Prism, not immortal prism, immortal. So yeah, things might go interesting once again.
When you go for the 2 Immortal 1 Warp Prism, basically you're also trying to kind of do reinforcement cycles in the front. When you do two immortals first before the War Prism itself, it's a drop disrupt, not really a drop to be aggressive per se, because you're mostly massing things up, and you're gonna have a big
Mhm.
army in the front line when you're playing that Protoss. When you go for one immortal and then one War Prism, you're kind of in a rush state. You just want to make sure you have an immortal to complement your stalkers as much as possible and have that big bulky units, and you basically go for an all-in in a way with those gateway units. So it really is that build order even on the rogue facility making a difference. And as I say that, it's multiple immortals this time. So for DavidBane, he's not gonna go for drop play, he's going for a big crush with these many immortals hanging on back.
So an interesting follow-up from David Bain actually going for the Glaive Adepts and the War Prism. And for Pobbes, he would be going in for the Blink.
Blink Soccer versus Adepts with Glaives. Now, the thing about the Glaved Adepts is it seems like they're going to be looking to snipe those probes as much as possible. And DavidBane already realized the situation since we got a Stalker heavy comp there from Pobbes. More Immortals equals more victories, more Immortals equals more carcasses to turn into other Immortals, and here we go with more Adepts now being warped in. Stargate is still chilling right here after the Oracle just moved around the map. It's still alive actually, with a number of kills, and it's high time for it again to go for the harassment, and I think that's what this is a plan here for DavidBane. He's not harassing with the Warp Prism, he's doing it with the Oracle instead. Revelation though to see where the Stalkers are for a little bit, but it's just gonna be a goodbye there from the Oracle and their antics in the middle line.
And I think Glaive Adepts being warp pinned here at the 3 o'clock side of the map for the side of David Bain will try and maybe do a frontal push.
Oh no, Pobbes is going for a third base and DavidBane is looking for blood, hungry for it as much as possible. Working out is pretty even, 18 army difference though, and for DavidBane, that 18 army difference is pretty big because of those 3 immortals, especially since the Warp Prism ready to go. Now something to note though, real quick, Malupeyt, is that Blink Stalker is online, and he might be able to get the snipe onto many of these units in behind. Size strap though, stand up already. Force fields are there, and Pobbes trying to go for a brawl, but it's just not gonna be enough. In the forefront, DavidBane just too much damage into this one. And sure, the force fields are blocking the Immortals from pushing on forward, but this is absolute damage, and DavidBane will tie things up. We are gonna have a match here, ladies and gentlemen.
We are headed on to our do or die series or a do or die matchup. And I think David Bain attack on the right time actually getting caught off guard. Pobbes got caught off guard that time, expanding onto the third nexus, and the army supply really a huge difference for the side of David Bain.
All I gotta say here, Mr. Vic, is he who expands first loses, and that's exactly what happened. Pobbes, he got crippled there from that double adepts, and then he tried to go for a little bit more money with third base, and yeah, that's not gonna fly when you have 3 immortals knocking your doorstep. Doesn't matter if you get any good force field play, because that is just too much damage in the first place. Highly unfortunate there for Pobbes, but there still is a chance. He got that first game already, DavidBane with the second, and we are gonna be looking to get on back into this one and get into our third map, which will be Everdream LA. I wouldn't be surprised though to see some more proxy play there from DavidBane, because, well, a map like this, you can hide a number of buildings on the sides and even on the high ground.
Well, in terms of mechanics, we can clearly see that almost the player have this plays at the same level. It all boils down to execution and scouting. So in a do or die matchup, wait, pinapa-accept ako ni Faisal.
Oh my god. Was Spectator not accepting? It's Mizzle's fault. Mizzle, you're the one who's not accepted. You're the one without the check mark, my friend. For some reason. There you
Oh
go.
my
There you
goodness.
go. Dude, you're getting baited by our admin. What can you say about that, Malupeyt?
Well, I don't want to incriminate myself. I still
Mm-hmm.
want to join the tournaments, and
Okay, okay, okay. Still 4-5 though. One of you is messing things up. One of you guys is messing things up. And it's not me. I have a check mark. I have a check mark who...
si
Si Mizzle talaga yung walang
Faisal.
eh. Si Mizzle talaga yung walang check mark eh. So, ako na. Give me the lobby. So yeah, we're gonna get into Everdream in just a bit. We're just having a little bit of an issue here. trying to figure out how this game actually works in the first place. And our next map will be Everdream LE. Now, before we start, I just want to explain real quick how Twitch works. For anyone who's new to Twitch itself, when you go to a channel, right, you click the name again, and sometimes if you're on the old Twitch, you'll see a video tab up above. If you click the DaksPH down below, you'll be able to go into older VODs itself, and in Twitch, you can basically check out a VOD while it's happening at the same time. So you just have to scroll around, you'll be able to find the questions there, and again, we stay here because we do want to make sure that our players, yeah, we're on Everdream. Our players are still focused on, but at the same time, for our viewers who want to really win that keyboard, then they can actually check that one out as well any single time. Now, of course, it's gonna be a lot harder to find it if you're not tuning into it live, but you can find it. I believe we did it when you do that first question. I think it was like round 3 between Jack and whoever his opponent was. Yep, so it is Mizzle who is not being able to accept the game for some reason. Hopefully, it's gonna be a-okay for him. And apparently, it's me and Malupeyt who are playing rather than DavidBane and Pobbes. But let's move it on into the next game. Still, though, Protoss versus Protoss. Any thoughts, though, coming in from those first 2 maps there, Malupeyt?
Well, just to give a quick recap, on the first game, Pobbes taking out DavidBane on a very magnificent showing, actually doing the multi-pronged warp prism drops and cutting DavidBane way out of position. But on game number 2, DavidBane wins that one, forcing a decisive game 3. I think the early harasses were really crucial because I think in the lower tiers of the player, like no, I mean Diamond is not low tier anymore, but you get the point.
I get the point.
One
No
of
worries.
the things that auto your brain kind of autopilots that when you lose probes or when you lose workers, it decides to autopilot to worker up more or build more of your economy. And David Bain took that advantage, building a huge army supply and attacking on the right time.
Yep.
So back to our game
Yep.
3,
Back into
our
the
do or
action.
die matchup.
Let's go.
Winner advances to the semifinal and losers bows down to the tournament. On to the lower left side of Everdream LE, we got our blue Protoss, David Bing. And on the upper right corner of Everdream LE, we got our purple Protoss, Pobbes.
I got it right this time. Good job, game. We got it right this time. So here we are on Everdream LE. Pretty classic map per se. One of the favorites from the initial pool last time in the last season, comparing it to the hijinks that were like Golden Wall, like Purity and Industry. Everdream was something that people really like to play. They have some natural chokes onto that second, onto that third. Make sure that you are safe and sound in so many ways from a really, really brutal concave. But it still is an even map, all about that high ground right now in the middle of all of it. And we are going to have our 2 gateways set up between our 2 Protoss players. So a quick little recap again, as Malupeyt already initialized earlier on. First game, Pobbes with just crippling blows on the economy. Second game, DavidBane doing the same. And apparently, again, he who expands first gonna be losing on out. Pobbes there, just expanding onto that third place, getting caught out by 3 Immortals and a Dream. And that was just not enough for him to hold the line. DavidBane taking one back, and we are all tied up right now. It's a decider here in this Protoss versus Protoss, and DavidBane unrelenting with the Proxy Pylon on the west side.
Another proxy pylon from the side of David Bain. Actually, in the first game, it was not that utilized, but on the second game, the Oracle harass and the Starport actually working for him. So we'll see again. We see another mirror matchup.
I don't think we can not get a mirror matchup in PvP. It really feels like... I feel like in PvP, it's the most you have to mirror at the very start. For ZVZ, it's like you mirror all throughout in a way. You can lead into tech, but someone will have to follow. But literally in PvP, it's a mirror matchup to the finest degree. In TPT, it's kind of the more, unique one in a way. You can change things up, the orders of your buildings, the how many buildings you have in the first place. DavidBane, though, setting up those adepts, and in the meantime, he's again blockading with the pylon. Now, I like to see from DavidBane in a way, because he's the one who controls that pylon. He's the one who controls if the cancel happens or not, and can he infiltrate again with the adept? That's gonna be the real question. Is he gonna be a magician that pulls off the same trick twice in a row, Or will it be Pobbes able to cancel that one out, handle it, and he releases a probe into play because he feels like DavidBane is wanting to do the same thing all over again.
Pobbes actually playing defensively now and not using the stalkers to move across the map. But we might see another slide from the Shades of the Adept into the back line of the Minerals. And this right here, ladies and gentlemen, can be really crucial as we have seen on our last game.
DavidBane, this guy knows exactly what to do. He slides into your DMs, he slides into that main base, and wow, oh wow, pixel perfect there. Pobbes is like, huh? How did that not work? Why does this happen to me? That's so unfortunate. Gateway is now being built. Oh my god, when in doubt, go for the Dark Shrine. You know, I have a saying when behind, go Dark Shrine. I also have a saying when in front, go for Dark Shrine. Just go for Dark Shrine. DTs are very fun to use. Here we go though with Row Facility. Hallucination though of the Phoenix might be able to scout things out. What is the pathway here? This is going to be crucial for Pobbes. He has to get the scout right now. Keep an eye out on his vision.
And oh my goodness, misses. Almost
misses.
Getting the scout.
DavidBane, this guy is pulling out some random tricks here, Mr. Malupeyt.
Yeah, here comes the Dark Templars and no observers yet available from the side of Pobbes. We might see our very deciding game number 3 and very early.
Oh my god, Pobbes, he's going for Immortal and he's gonna be boosting that one. Is it time for the strike from the shadows? The invisibility, turning invincibility, he has to realize though that he should be going for the pylon rather than anything else, but here we go right now with the probe line instead getting decimated, and that's still gonna be enough damage there. Economy has been stifled, no second nexus point, and here we go with the observer right now, desperate to get warped in. In the meantime though, it's gonna be the units right now trying to encircle that pylon, and the Dark Templar, I feel a little too greedy there for Pobbes. What do you think, Mr. Malupeyt? Should have gone for that Tosis pylon instead and shut down that potential robo facility, warping that observer in? Oh my god.
Well, actually good reaction from Pobbes there, getting the read and immediately canceling the Immortal, but I think DavidBane should have focused on this pylon instead, and if that pylon is destroyed, this game should have ended, really.
I mean, he's still taking the lead though. These DTs have paid for themselves and then some. That worker count right now on the side of Pobbes quite in the gutter, 24 to 38. Even though we already have DavidBane only on 2 base at the same time, he's fully saturated and he's feeling confident because with the DTs, he can go for Archons if he needs to, and at the same time, he has his own good bulk of units: 3 sentries, 2 stalkers, and Immortal. No laughing matter, especially with some really good force field play. That DT though. DT, I love them. When I was a kid, basically DTs were the only things I would build. Or Boudoir, and you would always win until you would lose to, you see a Science Vessel, like, ugh, yuck, Science Vessel, who builds those units? You don't appreciate spellcasters when you're younger. He's just like raw damage. That's pretty much it. But Pobbes right now trying to mitigate that damage. He is gonna be going for the macro, playing very defensively with that shield battery into play, because he's seen what DavidBane is up to. When he gets the economy lead, he just masses up on the army, and you know, from 1 Immortal it becomes 3, and it just becomes its demise. So I like the decision here from Pobbes. It really goes to show though for Pobbes he's more of a veteran, and speaking of veterancy, it goes 2 ways real quick, Malupeyt. The pylon placement there, pixel, unfortunate, just not really too in tune with new match. But in the meantime, his decision making so quick, goes around that pylon, surrounds it as much as possible to allow that observer to come up, as DavidBane now is on the march.
DavidBane now with the Warp Prism would be moving right across the map, and we might see another the same thing happening from game number 2, as Glaive Adepts would be finishing in a second here, ladies and gentlemen. But the blink still a long way for the side, but the observer from Pobbes actually scouting the warp gate from the bottom right side of his base, and another push. Archon ready available from the side of DavidBane, and he would push right here right now.
To the front line we go, Malupeyt, and that Archon, as we said, gonna be a crucial unit to be the tank for the time being. Good micro though, puts the Immortal in behind. And again, DavidBane understanding exactly how to attack with the battery overcharge. It's like, okay, blow in the green, and now it's time to blow you down. It's gonna be a push here. The Adepts trying to go for the infiltration in behind, forcing the army to really bulk up there. And what a bait from DavidBane, again pulling a rabbit out of his hat and forcing that army to do nothing about that front line.
And also, if you have seen earlier the engagement, he uses the force fields to actually trap the Immortals on the corner. But back to the engagement, DavidBane will try to shade and maybe surround this army. Ladies and gentlemen, it's looking dire for the side of Pobbes. Getting the surround, and the Probes has been pulled out of the mineral to fight. But oh my goodness, this might be the tournament series for Pobbes, and DavidBane advances into our semi-final matchup. What a game and what an engagement once again from DavidBane.
DavidBane with a harass with the victory, and he will take that one in a reverse. We've taken care of business 2-1. And that was actually a really good PvP, but it just goes to show what DavidBane is up to. And he is just all the way up and up with that harassment, with understanding those small little positions. And in all honesty, Pobbes was kind of like a little lost in a way. Even though he had some really good reactions, he just couldn't do anything about that mass number of depths. And if that happens, if you let those shades go to the other side, he will still lose the economy. It really is a rock and hard place there for Pobbes. At the end, it is going to be DavidBane moving on to the semifinals, and he is looking to really be our first repeat champion.
It's going to be an interesting matchup. Actually, it might be a PVZ or it might be a PVT. So for the Zerg fans here in the Philippines, we're all rallying behind the Dion or Daiwan. So yeah,
Dion,
Dion.
actually. It's like the
Dion.
moon, it's the moon.
Alright. So the last remaining Zerg
Is
in
he?
the tournament.
Is he? I think Lev is also a Zerg. Oh, we have 2 Zergs in our top 8. I'm so proud of you guys here in the Gold to Diamond bracket. We're getting more Zergs now. It's not just Protoss. Like, I think the first one had 6. It was round of 16. Almost everyone was Protoss, and then round of 8 was almost also all Protoss. I can't remember anymore. But yeah, that was the show there. And speaking of the show, Pobbes with the first victory, but DavidBane just eking it out on Deathaura as well as Everdreen. Well executed there from DavidBane. I think his composition really is that Immortal with the Adepts. And when you go Immortal Adepts instead of Immortal Blinkstalker, it just means that you're trying to use some antics like those shade plays to really force your opponent to make some crucial decisions that they have to figure out where they're going to be engaging, what they're going to be sacrificing. And in that instance, since DavidBane had the advantage, there was nothing Pobbes could give up, and he was the one who fell down. So kudos to DavidBane winning that one out. And we will be right back, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned, stick around. We are going to be going into another match in the SCPH Quarantine Tournament number 4.